Hello, sellers. It's Kathy, and I love to be selling. Come on in. I have got such a great tip for you. I've entitled this video, eBay Sellers Don't Miss This Tip. And this tip is so good. It will work for you also selling on Etsy, selling on Poshmark, and selling on Mercari. So come on in because I do not want you to miss this out. And thank you for joining me. I so appreciate it. If you're joining me on Facebook Live, if you can like my page and follow it, I would certainly appreciate that. And if you're listening to me on YouTube, if you can subscribe to my channel, just hit the button up at the top. And if you're listening to me on my podcast, on the various places that it is, if you could click subscribe, I would appreciate it. And if you're watching it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, if you can leave me a review, I certainly appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So what is this super important tip that I don't want you to miss? So just so you know, so I was on YouTube. So I like to see, what are other sellers suggesting? What are other sellers saying? Because you know what? No matter how long you're selling on eBay, this is a bonus tip. There's always more to learn. It's one of the things that I love about selling online and selling on eBay is there's always more to learn. There's always more to the journey. Things are always changing, you notice that. But I find that exciting. So that's the first thing is to sort of set your mind about dealing with change, is that this is exciting, and to think about it. Oh boy, something new. And listening to these sellers, great tips showing things that are selling for them. For some sellers, ephemera, paper goods are selling really well. Other people are doing really well with clothing. Other people really well with sneakers. And that's what I wanted to start with is, before jumping into what is selling, ephemera is selling. We're getting close to back to school. This is July 17th. And if you're not aware of it, back to school starts in the South in just a few weeks before it rolls out all over the United States. So back to school is starting. Then we've got the fall. And then we've got Halloween and harvest season. And then we go straight into fourth quarter with the holidays, with Hanukkah, with Christmas, and with Kwanzaa. Is before I do that, so before like what is selling, before how can I increase my sales, is just to stop. Because what can happen sometimes, particularly when sales get slow, and for some sellers, sales can slow down in the summer. Other people, it can be in the fall. And other people, it's in the winter. People have different selling seasons depending on the inventory that they're selling. For instance, I worked with a very large home and garden seller, and for them, the spring is extremely busy because that's when people are buying plants. But the fall was very, very quiet. So we worked together to find items that they could sell to keep their business going through the fall when live plants aren't selling. So there's things like that to consider. So to look at what your selling seasons are, and then to figure out how to source things that do sell in your off-season period. But before even starting that, and I worked on this with this seller and with other sellers that I work with in my membership, my private clients, is you got to stop just for a second and think, what are you doing right? What works for you? And this is good even if you're a new seller. So let's say I'm starting. I remember when I first started and I was like, is just to stop and go, okay, what are my strengths? So if I'm a brand new seller and I'm just starting to list on eBay and I'm just starting to sell on eBay, you go, well, Kathy, I really don't know that much about eBay selling. That's why I'm listening to your videos. That's why I'm following you and other sellers. Great. But there's things that you're really good at. You might be very organized. You have some great inventory because you've gone through your closets and your drawers. So what you're good at is you pulled all this inventory out of your home. Others, as you go a little further along, you might be a great shopper. Some of my eBay seller friends are they're really good shoppers. And in that, I mean, spotting things that that they're going to make good money on, good margins on. Okay, so they're really good at ferreting out things, looking in the store, finding those overlooked things. You can go into like a thrift store after there's been a big sale day. Like in my neighborhood, there's a very large Salvation Army, and the big sale day is Wednesday. A lot of the items are half off. So typically then if you go on Thursday, things are really picked over because they haven't really put in the new supplies yet. But what's fun is I can still go in on Thursday and I can find things that were overlooked because they're a little unusual. So we all have different skills. Some of us are very organized. We're really good with spreadsheets. We're really good shopping. Other people, I've got a great friend, Bill Webster with Connectables. He's a great shipper. He's really good at packaging goods. He and his wife made a source and sell really wonderful, unique collectibles. And some of them are very, very fragile, very, very breakable. He's really good at shipping. This is a great skill. And he really analyzes. It's something that he loves to do about packing things so that they ship correctly and they get to their person and they ship around the world, that they arrive safely. So you just think about it. It could be organizing. It can be sourcing. It can be spotting trends. It can be spotting the unusual. You have a great flair. Some people, you have a bookkeeping background, an accounting background. So the number crunching you're really good at, okay? And other people, as far as the organization, it can be you're good at organizing your day or your week, and others are really good at organizing their physical space or creating an inventory system. So regardless of where you are in your selling, and oftentimes we're so busy listing, we're so busy shipping, we're so busy staying on top of all the changes, like recently there was the UPS change with Ground Advantage, is that we forget to stop and just sort of, for what we're doing right, go and read your feedback. It's wonderful. I just had a really fun feedback from somebody and they went, oops, because it had autofilled. So they actually bought, and I've seen this, when I'm like looking at people's feedback, they bought the pen and it says, thank you for the beautiful dress. You ever had that happen? But read your feedback. Read the messages. One thing I like about eBay right now is the new messaging system for buyers and sellers. The sweet messages you get. Thank you so much. I appreciated the careful wrapping. Thank you for the thank you note, whatever it is. But read it. You're not wasting time. It's good to look at all the people that are happy. And if you're new, and you're getting a little bit of a tough time getting feedback, don't worry, it'll come. Read the one or two feedbacks that you have. Read the one feedback that you have. You're brand new, celebrate the one sale you get. So it's starting from a place of looking at your strengths, celebrating what's working, and then moving on to the next step. Okay, so starting with celebration, starting with looking at your strengths as an individual, as a seller, and then going, okay, here's the strengths that I have, and now here are the things that I want to work on. So the first thing is, if your sales are slow, and they can slow down a bit in the summer, but just to remind you, they can slow. For somebody else, it's going to be the fall, like my home and garden seller. Other people, it could be the new year. But if the sales are a tad slow right now, is go and look at, and this is really easy to do, just click paid and shipped and look at what's sold like in the past month or so, and just scan, just visually scan and look. And I do this like with pen and paper. Is it kids' clothes, kids' shoes, women's shoes, a lamp, lampshades, could be journals, women's tops, men's polo shirts. I'm just thinking of all different things that I've seen selling recently. Whoop. Oh, here goes my phone. Sorry about that, you guys. Whoop. There we go. That's what happens when I don't turn my phone off. But look at what's been selling for you. Health and beauty, by the way, has been selling for a lot of people. So maybe you got a great deal on some shampoo or conditioner or supplements, but look at what has sold for you, not somebody else, for you. What has sold like in the past 30, 60 days? And you can look. And even if it's only 3 or 4 things, look at what's sold. Bookends, books. Okay. I've done well with cookbooks, by the way. Cookbooks do very well for me. Unusual cookbooks. Okay. Could be DVDs. DVDs still sell on eBay. So take a look at what has sold for you. Just general category. Write it down. Now, this is something when you are sourcing, and when you're new, it's all your personal items. So this will be a little bit easier for you, is look at where you source those items from. So if it's books, was it Salvation Army? Was it Goodwill? Was it somebody moving and they just, they left a bunch of things as they were moving? Was it a flea market? And what I do when I purchase is in the SKU field, and you've got one on eBay, and nobody sees it except for you. And that's where you want to put personal notes. You don't want to stick them in the title. You don't want to stick them in the description and codes. You want to put them in the SKU field because only you see it. And do abbreviations for where you buy things. So the flea market, I do SA for Salvation Army. If you're sourcing at multiple Salvation Armies in New York City, we've got a bunch. You can do codes for the different ones. Same thing with Savers, same thing with Goodwill bins. So if different codes for different things. And go and look at where you bought the items from. Was there one really good Salvation Army? Now, this is tougher with yard sales because it's only the one day. But if you do yard sales, what neighborhood was the yard sale in? Because it might be, for instance, in this neighborhood, there's a lot of people that love to golf. Or this neighborhood, there's a lot of people with kids, and kids items are doing really well for you. So do codes for where you're buying things. Then when you go and you look at what's sold, can I go back to that place? This actually happened to me. I'm trying to remember. It was kids' DVDs that I got a really good deal on, and it was at a dollar store in my neighborhood. So these did really well, and I had bought like a handful of them just to see how it would do. They flew out the door. I was like, oh, this is great. And so I ran back and bought more. Oh, there goes the cha-ching. Yay. Oh, see, another cha-ching. I ran back and bought more. So that's another thing is, it sort of, you do your research and you might want to go and jump and scoop everything. This is when I was newer. So it was like my testing would be, I'd spend like $5 or $10, test it. And then if it went well, I'd go back and get more if I could. Sometimes you miss it and the item has sold out. You're like, oh, darn, I should have bought more. But write where you're getting them from. And this is the thing about being on social media and watching YouTubes is one person could share, for instance, ephemera. I have several seller friends that do very well with ephemera, with postcards and with journals and paper and just all kinds of things with ephemera. And then other sellers, they just don't do well with ephemera. So it's that thing of looking what works well for you. I have some seller friends that do great with Disney, and Disney's extremely competitive. And also some Disney sells really, really well, and some Disney doesn't sell really, really well. So you always got to do your research. When people say, oh, Disney sells or this sells or that sells, is go and do your research. It's not just like a blanket thing, or rarely is it a blanket thing. Look and check, like if it's a certain brand. Lululemon, one of my favorites, because I love sourcing Lululemon when I can find it, is if it's a more recent pattern, like if it's currently on their website or just recently got stopped, it will sell typically for higher price than one that's older, like it's been out for a year or so, unless it's highly desirable, like this pattern was just super fantastic, super amazing, and people still really want it, even though it was from like a year and a half or 2 years ago. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that's true with any brand. Is if it's current, typically it'll go for a better price. You just have to make sure that you're less than the website. Otherwise, they won't buy it from you. So look at what are your strengths. What sells for you, even if you're a soup to nuts seller. Like, wow, you know what? I typically do really well with 1,000-piece puzzles, or I really do well with kids' shoes, or I really do well like with Chico's for women. I got a really good sense of the styles and the colors and the patterns that were selling. Again, Chico's very popular, fantastic company, fantastic clothing. And some of it like sells in a second, and some of it just sits there forever, right? So you got to check because size matters, and also the pattern matters, and how recent it is. So always, what's selling for you? And then when you're listening to people, and always double check that there are people that you want to be listening to. So I like to listen to people that are proactive, that are upbeat, that are coming up with solutions, not the people that are crying that the sky is falling. So I listen to people, I go, oh, that sounds interesting. Is then go and see if you can source those kinds of things where you are, right? So for instance, like here in New York, I can source some fun Broadway collectibles because typically cast members, if it's like opening night swag, which is great, they're moving, or they're moving from a different apartment, or they're going out on the road. So they might be clearing their apartment and they'll donate that to various thrift stores. So when you can come across that kind of thing, it is gold. And you might have that in your neighborhood as far as like with Disney in Florida. There might be some unique stuff or things that were only out for a couple of days or for a week or for a special event that will show up in a thrift shop in Florida that perhaps like here in New York, I wouldn't have access to that. So always keep an eye out for things that might be unique to your area or that you can get your hands on. Okay. So one, start with a winning mindset. And even on days, and please, we all have them where it's just like, oh, like days when you get more returns than sales. It's like, oh no, is just stop. Because when I go into, just that this is awful and everything is just crummy and, oh, darn, these buyers that return things, yada, 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 that kind of thing. And we've all had them. I've gotten items back. They were not in the condition that I sent to them. And you're like, I have to deal with this. We all have days like that. But then to look at and go, you know what? But I am a good seller. I sell good products. I have good customer feedback. I've got inventory here that I can still list. I can go through my closets and find more inventory if I'm a little short on cash, but I still need inventory. I can look at what is working. I shipped on time today. I packed well today. And then start with that even on days that are really challenging, and then go to listing, and then go to revising listings, to make them more desirable, like they've been sitting there for a while and then need to have the keywords refreshed. Okay. But always start thinking about what is working. What are my strengths? Not, boy, I wish I could be like this person. I wish I could be. No, 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 no. I am who I am. I bring to my selling who I am. I source in the places around me. And if you don't have great places around you, you source online. There's always a solution. Always. And if things are a little slow, I've got a great freebie for you. So hop over to my website, ilovetobeselling.com. And what you're looking for is top 10 tips to ignite your eBay summer sales. This is completely free. And if you don't know, I worked in retail for over 15 years and on QVC for over 6 years. So I love to focus on things of, how to get the sales going. They've slowed down a little bit. Okay, let's get them going again. This is free. It is my gift to you. So hop over to my website, I love to be selling, and grab top 10 tips to ignite eBay summer sales and focus on what is working. Great. I'm Kathy, and I love to be selling. Bye-bye, everybody.